So this is 17, if I'm correct. All right, video 17. And I need to get a hand check of how many of you are caught up on the videos.
I'm not caught up.
Get caught up. Tests are coming. Winter's coming, okay? Very important, because you're gonna be tested over all the material on, we'll call it a midterm. I'm gonna midterm y'all, okay? Okay, and I'm gonna test you up to all the philosophy of mind stuff, okay? And so you can use the videos, but if you're far behind, then you have to go watch hours and hours of my videos, and yeesh, okay. Then I also just put up an Aristotle assignment. Did anybody see that one yet?
I saw it this morning.
Good, because that's when it was put up. So you're good. You're right on top of it. So Aristotle, I'm going to have you read book 1, and you're going to answer some questions. There are 4 questions on there. Okay. And so that's fun. Okay. Pretty simple. Just make sure you answer them well. Don't I will know almost right away if you have them correct or if you're just BSing. Okay? So they're either correct or incorrect. Because it's more about what Aristotle said. Okay? Now, Aristotle talks about the polis. Okay? What is the polis? The polis, P-O-L-I-S, is the city. And the city is where man gathers, right? Man is political by nature. So keep that in mind. By political by nature, that means we gather by nature. No man is an island. Very, very, very few of us are hermits. We may be introverts, but we're introverts in cities. Okay? We live and gather in groups. He's going to make the claim that political science is the highest of all sciences. Now, when he says science, obviously he's not talking biology and we're not in a lab, okay? He's talking about knowledge, okay? And the questions of how should we then live. And that is a major question of all the earlier philosophers, where they were interested in the greatest society. The greatest and just society. Like when we look at, Plato, what were they talking about? Justice, right? When we talk about truth and all that in here, in analytic philosophy and the philosophy of mind, those are all parts of a whole. Because what I think of you as an individual will determine how we treat each other in the city. Whether or not you are expendable, or whether or not you have certain rights beyond your abilities. Meaning, like, even if you are no longer that valuable to me instrumentally, like what you could do for me or what you could do for the city, that you are still valuable to have around and protect. Even if you are no longer an earner, like you're a useless eater, so to speak. Has anybody heard that term before, useless eaters?
None, but I get the sentiment.
Nazis used to use it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you think about, the Nazis didn't just kill the Jews. They killed gypsies, they killed the mentally retarded or the handicapped because they were useless eaters. And so you can see how they valued humans and human life. And so all these little small things, you go, well, what is truth? How can I evaluate the statement, about what the Nazis did if I can't know truth, have knowledge about it, right? What about, value statements about who you are if all you are is a brain, right? And that brain can't control the body, therefore you're probably not going to be doing too much work. So guess what? What are we going to do? We're going to feed you and work, might as well just get rid of you now, put you in the furnace, and turn you into dust. Okay? That's, you can see how that happens when we're reduced to nothing more than our physical parts. All right, so we were reading the Nicomachean Ethics, and we just started, really. We didn't get that far. But let me kind of give you guys a little, not a refresher, but just catch you up really quickly. Aristotle starts off, and I've read very little, but I discussed quite a bit. He suggests that every activity you do aims at something else, some other good. All right? So whatever you're doing is for something else mostly, right? What are you doing today?
Going to class.
Going to class in order to do what?
Get a degree.
To get a degree in order to do what?
Do what I want to do.
What do you want to do?
Physical therapy.
So to get a job in physical therapy in order to do what?
Help people.
And
Succeed.
can't you help people by doing other things?
That's true.
But you're looking for a job in physical therapy. That helps people in order to pay your bills,
Yeah.
to pay back for your schooling, right? In order to do what?
Not go in debt.
Not go in debt, not be put into jail for whatever, you get bad credit, okay, whatever. In order to do what? So you have good credit, so you can do what with that good credit?
Buy a house.
Buy a house in order to do what?
Start a family.
Fill it with family. In order to do what? Keeps going, doesn't it?
I didn't like that part.
Nobody ever thinks so. Why do you want a family? What if you just have a family, didn't need school?
Life would be easier.
Yeah. Just have a place and, government gives you money, government gives you a house, right? You have a family.
Wouldn't be much motivation.
Yeah, that would suck, huh? You wouldn't feel a whole lot of pride in it. Okay? But the point is that he's suggesting that you want things for something else. You want money in order to you don't want the greenbacks. I mean, they are kind of artistic and neat looking, right? The feel of the paper is, it's kind of cool, which is a linen. But come on, do you need millions of those things? Well, what you want is you want millions of those things so you can get other things, okay? Right? So you could go buy a nice house. And if you had enough of it, maybe you'd live on the beach, right? Maybe you'd have your own private island. What would you do with all that money?
I don't know.
But you could you'd say you'd have a nice house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it'd be kind of cool. Would you have a nice car?
Yeah.
A nice car, not the beater, But you want all those for a purpose, right? They're instrumental. They have instrumental value. He makes a distinction between instrumental value and intrinsic value. He says something is the greatest good that we want for itself. What is that thing that we want for no other thing? So what is that thing that we want for no other thing?
Is there a specific answer or is there?
Yeah. It's happiness.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay? But we have to ask the question, what is that thing? Now, Aristotle goes on to suggest that if you want something, you got to aim for it, right? And if you aim for that thing, you're more likely to hit it. So if you want happiness, it is very important that you know what happiness is, so that if you are aiming to be happy, you are more likely to hit it. That doesn't seem weird. You know what's odd to me though is people aim at the wrong things all the time. Like I wanted this job, so I did the things that, you know, I kind of went a roundabout way, but I still did the things that I thought would get this job, and I did it. And you know, the pay is what the pay is, okay? But I wanted it for the job. I didn't want it for the pay, because I like to talk to you people, right?
Right.
Because I like you guys, and I like to talk about these things. And I like, first of all, I went into it to spread the gospel. I was originally a scripture guy, and then I ended up being a philosophy guy, and then I moved over into the politics side of things. So it's kind of weird because I'm a big church-state guy, right? Anyway, so we're in philosophy now, and one of the goals of my philosophical endeavors was to defend the gospel through use of, you know, philosophy. Well, anyway, so I aimed at this. Now, am I a billionaire? Should I be a billionaire? No. And if I wanted to be a billionaire, did I aim at the right thing?
No.
No, I made the wrong choice. If I tell you, I don't know how many people out there complain about how much money they make, and they knew how much money the job they made is before they ever pursued it. I want to be a nurse. Why do the doctors make all the money? Well, you should have been a doctor, right? You're complaining about being a nurse, and you knew the doctors made more money. Or then people are like, oh, those billionaires, we hate those billionaires, and I'm an educator. Well, why'd you go into education? Why didn't you go do what educators do? I mean, what billionaires do. If you want to go to jail, do what criminals do, right? Just go look at the jails, and you go, what are you doing? This is pretty common. They aim their arrow at the prison, and then they complain that they made it into prison. Make sense?
Yeah.
What they didn't aim it at is financial success and morality.
Oh.
But what they did do is think that they were aiming towards happiness. Nobody aims their arrow thinking, I am aiming for moral failure and destruction. They're all hoping for happiness. Okay? I assume you think that you will get some great joy out of doing physical therapy. I think it'd be kind of fun. You know, I kind of like thought being a coach, a trainer, see changes in people, success. I like that. Sounds fun to me. Will you be a billionaire?
Probably not.
No. If you're a billionaire, it will absolutely not be because you are a physical trainer, unless you become some famous physical trainer on TV. Then you're an entertainer. You're not really, you know what I'm saying? So, which you may be training also, but you're still, you know. Okay. Point being is, if you want to be a billionaire, do you want to be a billionaire?
No.
You don't want to be a billionaire. So if I gave you $1 billion, you'd say no, thank you. Okay, all right. So you don't want to do what it takes to be a billionaire, which I agree. That is an awful lot of work. Point is, you hit what you aim at. And if you want to be happy, you need to know what happiness is so that you can properly aim at it. Remember, in philosophy, what we like to do is define our terms. If you think happiness is jail, well, do what people who go to jail do. But I can guarantee not very many people actually say jail is happiness. Okay? Yet for some stupid reason they were pursuing things that they thought were going to make them happy, that landed them in jail. And others have pursued other things that just turned out empty in life. You know, I always wanted to be, I always want to be an actor, but I certainly acted for a while, wanted to be a famous actor. Would that have made me happy? People adoring me as I walked down the red carpet, you know, with starlets on my side. Would I have been happy?
It might have made you happy. Yeah.
What do I mean by happy? That's the key.
Oh, yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe popular, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But is popularity happiness?
No, not necessarily.
So, I mean, remember, all things shoot for this thing called happiness. And we have a difference between instrumental goods and or keep it fame. Is fame happiness, or is it? Do you want to be famous in order to be happy? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be being famous isn't necessarily happiness. You might want to be famous in order to be happy.
Right.
Let's read a little bit about what Aristotle has to say about all this. So he goes on, he says, let us begin again. Since every sort of knowledge and decision pursues some good, what is the good that we say political science seeks? What, in other words, is the highest of all the goods achievable in action? I'm at book 1, chapter 4, paragraph 15, subsection 15, if you will. Subsection 2, actually. Paragraph. You and I might have different, which translation do you have? I have Irwin's. Do you have Ross?
Where's that at?
It'll be on the cover. It'll say translated by.
I think it's covered by this sticker.
Those jerks. It's probably Ross. Well, let me read. As long as you got, well, the reason I say this is you're going to notice a difference in translation.
Yeah, it's that one. It says here, like, translated by.
Is it Ross?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ross is a good translation. I'm just going to tell you they're going to be different. Okay? So you're going to be like, ooh, that's a bit weird. Okay. So keep that in mind. So as far as its name goes, this is subsection 2. Most people virtually agree, for both the many and the cultivated call it happiness. And they suppose that living well and doing well are the same as being happy. But they disagree about what happiness is. And the many do not give the same answer as the wise. Okay? He's saying if I went and I had you guys write down, maybe you should do this. Write down right now what you think happiness is. Just give me a sentence. Give me a really quick sentence. And for the sake of the video, to keep rolling, I'll just probably, let you know that you'll probably all have something different. Don't look at them. Don't cheat. You'll probably have something very different than each other, or maybe similar. Depends on how you were raised. But also keep in mind that the Declaration of Independence tells us that the government is there to secure the rights of man, and one of the rights of man that is secured by governments is the right to pursue happiness. You have a right to pursue happiness. Not that it's running from you, but you have a right to aim at it, whatever it may be. Okay? I used to have everybody, one of the things, the questions you're going to do on your assignment for this is about this, okay? So, all right. For the many think it is something obvious and evident. For instance, pleasure, wealth, or honor. Pleasure, wealth, or honor. So some people believe, what did you put
Oh.
for happiness?
It's just like the feeling of satisfaction when
Ooh,
you.
so the feeling, just underline the word feeling. And just know that you think that happiness is either a sensation or an emotion.
Emotion.
Huh?
An emotion.
Okay, so write down that you think it's an emotion. What did you put?
Happiness is temporary satisfaction.
Temporary satisfaction. Underline the fact that you think it's temporary, that happiness comes and goes. What do you think? What'd you put?
Happiness is a sense of fulfillment of purpose.
So it's a sense of fulfillment. Would you call that a of purpose? So like if you're a psychopathic killer and you're satisfied with the work You're very fulfilled with the amount of dead bodies you've created. Would that be happiness?
I mean, I guess.
According to your definition, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I apply your you guys should note that what I do is I often take what you say and I apply it, and I apply it to something crazy.
In ways that we don't mean. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, but I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to see if the principle that you give is universal, and if it doesn't work universally, then it's probably not a good principle, right? I don't know if you'd call that person happy, would you?
The person doing the murdering.
Yeah. I don't think his victims would feel that satisfied.
Yeah. No,
If happiness is mere satisfaction, right? So that's what you said is satisfaction, right?
fulfillment of purpose.
Fulfillment of purpose, okay. Fulfillment, you know. I guess it depends on, oh wait, let me tell you something here. I don't think you're wrong.
Okay.
In fact, I think you're onto something. Because I heard satisfaction.
Oh, sense of fulfillment of purpose.
A sense. Is it a sense or is it the actual fulfillment of purpose? Underline the word purpose. Strike sense. Put a smiley face next to that. Go ahead.
I got happiness is a state of feeling full and satisfied with life.
Feeling. That's what I want. I focused in right away on. Underline feeling. Again, it's a feel. A lot of people associate it with feelings, okay? And even you did, in a sense, a sense. I want to give you credit for the other part, but I want to take away from the part. I want you to strike that word, sense. Aristotle's not going to put it that. Pleasure. I'm going to assume that you guys, now should you feel pleasure, is pleasure bad?
No.
Some people seek pleasure for itself, like people like to get high, right? If you could hit a button and always feel this sense of satisfaction, would you do it?
Yeah, why not?
Well, you can, you go down and buy drugs and get this euphoric feeling all the time, right? So why not? So are you going to do it?
Oh, if you're, I thought you were just specifically referring to the sense of a button, but if it's in the case of
Well, that
drugs-
button administers a drug.
Oh, okay, cool.
Let's say, yeah, yeah. I mean, is it just a sense of satisfaction? I feel satisfied all the time. Okay. Well, what does that have to do with purpose then anymore?
It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to, then you take it away. And if that pleasure that you get is merely what you want, you know, is that good enough?
No.
You say no. Drug addicts often say, well, no, that's pretty good. That's why they huff paint and, you know, shoot up heroin and live their lives according to pleasure, right? Animals live their lives according to, because they live their lives according to their appetites, and their appetites generally don't bring them towards things that are displeasurable, do they? What about wealth? We just talked a little bit about money. We all think money, look, money solves some problems, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It can also cause problems. You know, you have a lot of money, and then you gotta deal with people always wanting your money, right? You have little money, you have the problem of worrying about where am I going to get the money to pay my bills, right? And a lot of sadness comes out of the lack of wealth, okay? So a lot of people believe if I mean, look, we have a lottery. Do you guys ever play the lottery? Go buy yourself some scratch-offs? You do?
Yeah, I used to work at a gas station, so.
And you'd buy some of those, hey, you know what, even the gas station, if the gas station sells the winning ticket, I think they get a cut.
They stopped that in Texas.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's not cool.
What
Yeah.
a shame.
Yeah, a bunch of like little places, they'd have like 5 or so different tickets, and it's too much of a hassle to even sell them anymore because they only had them for the chance of
Right.
getting the cut. So all of these stores stopped selling lottery tickets at all
Sure.
because it doesn't make you money.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way to raise revenue for the state,
Yeah, you
and
don't get anything out of it.
the state gets all the money, and you're just being the person
Yeah.
wasting your time.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's my opinion you're wasting your money by doing it, you know, by buying those things, right? I mean, sure, the person who wins it is gonna say, man, I wanna waste my money, but your chances are pretty low. let's pretend you did get the money. Do all your problems go away?
No.
Some problems go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could probably pay my rent for a while. If you're not wise with your money, you're gonna cause a lot more problems, because now you're gonna spend all that money, and a lot of people go out and buy houses and not realize, oh, you're actually gonna pay taxes on houses, and the more money the house is worth, the more you gotta spend, and I just bought a house that I can't afford the taxes on, oh dang, even though I am now a multimillionaire. That's happened. A lot of these people are broke, you could look, and their life wasn't better while they were wealthy. They were actually just wealthier, unhappy people. But of course, we haven't defined happiness yet. But what we did do is earlier talk about money being instrumental. Having money is instrumental for some things, and it can, lack of money can certainly get in the way of your happiness, and too much money can actually get in the way of your happiness. And there does seem to be a sweet spot. Do you have to have money to be happy?
No.
Well, it depends on what we mean by money.
By money?
What do we mean by money? The ability to purchase goods and services?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to have at least, this is the assumption that you are in a place where resources get, goods and services are exchanged, okay? That wealth is obtained. That I could create wealth out of the fruit of my own labors, and I could trade that wealth to you for some other good and service that you created or obtained, right? Now, if I have no wealth, okay, that is usually represented in coinage or greenbacks, okay, then I can't get anything from you, can I? And if I can't get anything from you, no good or no service, chances are I'm gonna die. I mean, I'm gonna be out in the streets. I'm not gonna have the resources to clothe and feed myself or my family. How happy can one be without the ability to take care of oneself? You need wealth to do that, okay? Now, of course, we can imagine somebody out in a farm who's able to create stuff from the environment and all of his needs, right? But we don't live in that island, okay? You still need the land if you're that farmer guy, and the tools, and you need to be able to get them, don't you? All right. But what about honor? What is honor? What does he mean by honor? Does honor help us become happy? What does he mean by honors? Tell me about that.
I don't know.
If everybody loved you, would you be happy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what happiness is? Is everybody loving you?
No.
But it'd make you happy? It'd make you feel joy. You'd have a sense of a good, positive feeling, right?
Yes.
Right. Sounds to me like your happiness can be placed on others. You might be giving too much control to others about your happiness. That is, what happens when think of Donald Trump. Okay? I just read an article that said 92% of all news coverage is negative to him. How about every time, 9 out of 10 times, or 92 out of 100 times, the news mentions you, they're saying something mean about you?
I won't be happy.
No, you would not be very happy, would you? Well, that's if your happiness is dependent upon them. If they have the control. If happiness is them giving or withholding approval of you, of honoring you. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, clearly, look, I mean, we talk, even the most popular president, a lot of people don't like, right? Because there are two sides of the aisle in America, right? And the opposition is always like, I hate you. And the other side's like, oh, we love you, you're so great, right? So, Aristotle looks at those three things, what he believes the many and even the wise will call happiness or associate with it. Wealth, right? Honor and pleasure. But he's suggesting these. Now think of the things in America that we pursue. Fame, which would be kind of honor, right? Like I want to be a great actor, or a famous one at least. I wanted to be a musician and a famous one at that. I wanted to do that stuff. Maybe bring honor to my name, which is funny because I was in a Christian band. I want to be very successful. Yeah, I want to be famous and bringing honor to my name as I bring honor to Jesus' name. Obviously, poor motive. I wouldn't say that. I say that. But you go, let's examine our real motives here. Often our real motives is to glorify me rather than thee. But that have made me happy. We seek money. A lot of people go into business to make a lot of money, and they do. Are they happy? They may even have pleasure out of it, get pleasure out of all this, and find joy out of it. Joy and happiness are two different things. Joy is an emotion, happiness is not. That's why I caught you on it. People take drugs, watch porn, okay? And they think the pleasure is happiness. They seek this because this is happiness, okay? And you've got industries all around these three, okay? Aristotle's gonna say, I don't think that's it. So he says, for the many, says it's people believe it's pleasure, wealth, or honor. Then he goes, some take it to be one thing, others another. Indeed, the same person often changes his mind. For when he has fallen ill, he thinks happiness is health. So if only you're healthy, you'd be happy. And when he has fallen into poverty, he thinks it's wealth. And when they are conscious of their own ignorance, they admire anyone who speaks of something grand and above their heads. Among the wise, however, some used to think that besides these many goods, there is some other good that exists in its own right, and that causes all these goods to be goods. Presumably, then, it is rather futile to examine all these beliefs, and it's enough to examine those that are most current or seem to have some argument for them. By the way, I think those three are timeless, right? You add health in there. Health, wealth, pleasure, honor, right? Look at all those. I think that covers a lot of bases. He says, we must notice, however, the difference between arguments from principles and arguments towards principles. He's going to mention his teacher here. For indeed, Plato was right to be puzzled about this when he used to ask if the argument set out from the principles or led toward them, just as on a race course, the path must go from the starting line to the far end or back again. For we should certainly begin from things known. But things are known in two ways. For some are known to us, some are known without qualification. Presumably, then, we ought to begin from things known to us. That is why we need to have been brought up in fine habits if we are to be adequate students of fine and just things, and of political questions generally. For we begin from the belief that something is true. If this is apparent enough to us, we can begin without also knowing why it's true. Did you catch that? So he's given an epistemological statement. He starts from particulars rather than the method. Starts with going, I know that this statement is true. Okay? Some statements are true. Some statements are false. You can know that that is a true statement without knowing why it's a true statement, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You could examine it later to determine why, but at least it is properly basic. Remember the concept of properly basic beliefs? A belief that needs no other belief to be supported?
Right.
You can know that something is true rather than know why it's true. And you have to start with that. Okay? Because if you don't start with that, you'll never go anywhere. You'll always be asking, how do I know this is true? How do I know this is true? How do I know this is true? Add word backwards, ad infinitum, okay? Infinite regress argument, that's what it's called. For we begin from the belief that something is true. If this is apparent enough to us, we can begin without also knowing why it's true. Someone who is well brought up has the beginnings or can easily acquire them. Someone who neither has them nor can acquire them should listen to Hesiod. He who grasps everything himself is best of all. He is noble also who listens to one who has spoken well. But he who neither grasps it himself nor takes to heart what he hears from another is a useless man. He goes on and he says, but let us begin again from the point from which we digress. So he went on a tangent. For it would seem people quite reasonably reach their conception of the good, for example, of happiness, from the lives they lead. For there are roughly three most favored lives: the lives of gratification, of political activity, and the third of study. Okay? There are roughly three most favored lives. Okay? The many most vulgar would seem to conceive the good and happiness as pleasure, and hence they also like the life of gratification. In this they appear completely slavish or slavish, since the life they decide is on a life for grazing animals. Still, they have some argument in their defense, since many in this position of power feel as Sardanapalus felt, and also choose this life. Okay, the life of pleasure, he's literally saying you are like an animal. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
Would you rather be a pleasured animal than an unpleasured human?
According to Aristotle, you want to be an unpleasured human.
It seems to me I'd rather be a human, right? The cultivated people, those active in politics, conceive the good as honor, since this is more or less the end normally pursued in the political life. This, however, appears to be too superficial to be what we are seeking for. It seems to depend, listen to this again, more on those who honor than on the one, than of our own, it depends more on those who honor than on the one honored, whereas we intuitively believe that the good is something of our own and hard to take from us. See, they could take that away from you, right? That honor they bestow upon you. Think about O.J. Simpson, who was once revered and loved, and now he's reviled and hated, right? Is he happy?
Probably not.
I don't know if he ever was. Further, it would seem they pursue honor to convince themselves that they are good. That's another thing, too. Why do we pursue these things so much? Why do we need people to tell us that we're good? Is it possibly because we don't believe that we're good ourselves, and if somebody says that we're good, that they have more say in it than we do? And if we only convince them to say we're good, then we must be good? Preaches. Further, it would seem they pursue honor to convince themselves that they are good. At any rate, they seek to be honored by prudent people, among people who know them, and for virtue. It is clear then that in their view, at any rate, virtue is superior to honor. So they want to be revered by those they believe are prudent and who have virtue, right? And so that they look at you and go, "You're a good person," right? That's an ethical statement, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's upon virtue, and so they want to appear virtuous. And so in this statement, he says, so it appears that virtue is better than honor. Because that's what you're being revered for. Right? Perhaps indeed one might conceive virtue more than honor to be the end of political life. However, this is also apparently too incomplete to be the good. For it seems possible for somebody to possess virtue, but be asleep or inactive throughout his life. And moreover, to suffer the worst evils and misfortunes. If this is the sort of life he leads, no one would count him happy, except to defend a philosopher's paradox. Enough about this, since it has been adequately discussed in the popular works as well. The third life is a life of study, which, well, we shall examine in what follows. The moneymaker's life is in a way forced on him, not chosen for itself. And clearly wealth is not the good we are seeking, since it is merely useful, right? It's instrumental. Choice-worthy only for some other end. Hence one would be more inclined to suppose that any of the goods mentioned earlier is the end, since they are liked for themselves. Okay? But apparently they are not the end either. And keep in mind, pleasure is liked for itself, right? But he's saying this is not the highest end. This is not the highest good. Okay? Is family good for itself? Yes. But it's still not the highest end, is it? It's not the highest good. Okay? Honor is certainly wanted for itself, would you agree? To some degree, but is that the highest end? So you say he can list a bunch of goods that are wanted for something. He gets to a top and goes, yeah, but that's wanted for itself. But there's something better, even then. And many arguments have been presented against him. Let us then dismiss them. So what he's telling you is, a lot of these things are called good. These are all called happiness, or at least directed towards it. And he says, what has he done thus far? Told us what happiness is not. Not. And why is that important? Because that is why we are at school, and so many of my students are aiming, right? And they go, why are you here at school? And the ultimate goal is to get a degree so I can make some money. And then you ask them anything beyond that, and they're like, I have absolutely no idea about life or anything. And up until a philosophy class, they never asked that question. And up until the philosophy class, they thought the philosophy class was a class that they needed least in life. When in reality, it's the first class they needed to ask themselves, what should you be pursuing for happiness? What should you be aiming at? Does that make sense? Because before then, they were